Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved, helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. In this episode, we'll be talking about the release of the Ernest Livingston Visionary Trip Special, as well as new ministry developments in a remote village in Honduras. We'll be sharing a prayer request for two missionaries who have served faithfully in the ministry for decades. And we'll have a question and answer session with our founder, Jon Nelms, asking, what is your favorite country and why?
You're listening to the Final Frontiers radio show. My name's Daniel Nelms. I'm here with
Jon Nelms,
Michael Horn,
and Joshua Martin.
Hey, this is our October 2019 podcast.
Christmas is coming quick.
It is. It'll be here before you know it.
But remember Thanksgiving first. That's a pet peeve with me. We gotta
Amen.
stay thankful before you enter the Christmas season.
Speaking of Thanksgiving, we have a very special episode of The Screening Room coming out. So if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and do that when you're done listening to this podcast.
You're really going to love this episode. It ties quite a few of the different characters you've seen on other episodes so far and introduces them into a whole new situation. So I think you'll enjoy it if you get to see it.
This Thanksgiving episode is not a regular episode. It's longer than the normal one, so I hope you enjoyed that. But we just came out with Ernest Livingston Special in Honduras, the Visionary Trip Special. So hopefully you've seen that out there. Anybody that's listening, if you have not seen it, please go to the YouTube channel and just check that out. It's right there. It just came out last week. It's fresh.
It's 47 minutes of pure joy, I assure you.
You know, the other night I was in my room and I heard Nolene, my wife, sitting out in the den laughing. I thought, what in the world is she laughing at so much? She just kept laughing. So I went out there and looked over her shoulder, and she had her phone there. She was watching the Ernest Visionary Special. She didn't even have the volume on. It's just the
Seeing the horrors.
And she just kept laughing. So I thought, well, people are really going to enjoy this. So you will enjoy it if you go see it.
I had some of my family members saying that they were laughing in a public place when they were watching it, just laughing out loud.
It's a great comedy. And Josh, you did an excellent job on it. I mean, everything you do is good, but this looks like something we had sent off to Hollywood to have done. It was just extremely professional looking. You had a lot of new things in it that I'd never seen before. Like, well, one thing at the very end during the credits, I thought, isn't that neat? How in the world did he do that? Then a couple of days later, I was watching the Falcons get destroyed by whoever it was they were playing, and they had that same type thing popping up.
So make sure you watch to the end is the hint on that
There's
one.
an invitation.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but
you got to see all of it.
Watch the credits.
Without giving it away at the very end while the credits are rolling, somehow we got Brad Pitt to come and make an announcement to you guys. So be looking for it.
But it is nonstop action and nonstop comical things. So if you think Ernest had bad luck in season 1, just wait till you see this. It's constant bad luck. But everybody else has a great time. Everybody has a lot of fun.
Yes, they do.
And speaking of visionary trips, we've already got half of the weeks booked up for next summer.
Uh-oh.
So if you're interested in going, don't delay too long.
Better hurry.
Pastor Corey Sulin in Colorado, when I was out there a few weeks ago, he said he wanted to come bring his wife, and he got on the phone. He's sitting there and started calling up pastor friends of his, wanting to know if they wanted to go, and boom, 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 like that. He's filling up a group with he and his wife and their pastor friends and their wives to come down. So that'll be an interesting trip. And
that will be.
We got the group from Hammond Baptist High School, City Baptist High School it's called, up in Indiana, coming down for, this will be their third or fourth time to come. And the last time they came, that group of teenagers started a church out near the Tulipon area.
Wow.
So that was a tremendous blessing for them and for us to see it happen. So that's just two of the groups that come. So if you're interested in going, go to our website or go to visionarytrips.world, where we got videos up there, a revised information packet, things like that, and get a date picked out as soon as you can.
You know, speaking of Honduras, you were just telling us before we started, there's some new developments for Touch of Life down there.
This was a wild summer we just had, but among the things that happened, Pastor Fidel had started a new church in a little village called Guadaricayan. And the first time I went out there, I was summoned to a house next door And the lady there said she wanted to give us part of her property to build a church on. Though that doesn't happen every day. Then I went back and told the people that, and after the service, a couple called me a couple of days later and said, listen, don't take that property. We want to give you some property. Come to find out the lady, she meant well, but she's older and she didn't really even own it. It wasn't in her name, so she couldn't give it away.
That wouldn't be the first time that happened.
Well, that would be a typical Honduran donation, to give away something that belongs to somebody else. But he told us, look, my wife and I want to give you half of our property where we're at. And his half of property is going to be, I'm not good at sizes, but I'd say like maybe an eighth to a quarter of an acre, certainly big enough. Sure. For those of you who've been there and saw the property in Bartolo, it's easily the size of that property, if not bigger. But come to find out, he didn't own it. He thought he did. Some legal thing in gobbledygook. But anyway, in the last few months while I've been gone, he went through the process of getting it all worked out with the government, getting all the land redrawn out and put in his name. And once that was done, then he had it sectioned off to give us half of his property. And last Friday, I think I got an email from Edgardo saying it's done. He's ready to put it in our name, and he gave me the plat with the number and all like that. So we've been given a piece of land. So the next thing we'll want to do is raise maybe as much as $20,000 and build them a church with a feeding center, and then we can go ahead and open up a feeding center there for that little village.
Is this the village that has the really low-hanging power lines that you have to walk under, and they were actually meeting in someone's house? I think there was 2 houses next to each other.
Yeah, it is 2 houses.
Okay, so for those of you who are on the trips this summer, you might remember that place. There was like 15 different chicken huts out there, and the power lines were very, very low, so low that you actually have to bend over to keep from touching them. So that's the place.
It's the first little house you come to is where the kids would have their church on the porch, and then 30 feet away, the adults would have their service on another porch.
Right.
And that fella there, whose homes we use, and another man in that church, and his 2 adult sons, all 4 of them, along with Pastor Fidel, are studying in our Bible Institute.
Right.
So it's going to be a real stronghold. But the community there only has about, less than 50 people living there. So it will never be a huge church, but it's a solid church for those people.
Sure.
So it's something we want to do for them.
Well, I'd like to just shoot a little thing about one of the missionaries we work with and have been for quite some time, named Randy Steyerwalt from Kenya. Brother Randy was recently diagnosed with cancer, and he's been going through chemo since the 21st of this month. And last night he was admitted to the hospital again due to inflammation in his liver. And they put in some sort of a stent. So we just need to keep Brother Randy and his wife Phyllis Steyerwalt in prayer.
He is just a great man of God who has done so much there in Africa. I was there a couple of years ago, and I can remember still walking into this room where he had helped develop this entire discipleship series for all year long, and there was just boxes and boxes lining the walls, and he's helped the men just take the ball and run with it. To lose him would be a great loss for those people. They would be so sad. They'd be mourning forever, it's just, please remember him and think about him.
And Brother Gil Anger. Can you tell us about him, Josh?
Yeah, Gil Anger is another one that we need to pray for who has been sick. I've talked about him every once in a while on here, someone who greatly inspired me. And John's been praying for him. We've all been praying for him. I've been in touch emailing with his wife as well and with his ministry in Myanmar. He had a lot of problems. We won't go into all the physical problems that he's had that we've been praying for him about, but he had a recent fall that hit his head, and there was blood, internal bleeding on the brain, and that was the biggest issue they took him in for. He couldn't get into any of the other surgeries before he dealt with that. And he's still in bad shape, but he's out of ICU, and he's there, and they're working with him. They've got to get his cough and his lungs under control before they can put the stent in and deal with his heart. And then they're going to deal with liver issues and kidney issues. And so really pray for the family right now. And I just want everybody to pray for his wife, Joy Anger. Anybody that hears this that could pray for Brother Anger and also his wife, Joy, that would be wonderful.
And let me say this, too. Gil is an Australian, so most of the people who hear this broadcast won't know him, but those who do will be devastated to hear of his situation. So they haven't asked us to do this, but we know Gil. and he always survives on nickels and dimes. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants to contribute to help them with their medical needs and their living needs, they're going to have to get a different house to live in, and they got a lot of trials ahead of them. But you can send funding here, made out to Final Frontiers, but put a memo, or in the memo field, put Gil Anger. If you don't remember that, just put the Australian missionary or whatever. Gil and Randy are in my top 5 on my list of the greatest missionaries alive in my lifetime. So we'd love to see our ministry be able to do something to help both of them. Please, too, keep Nolene and I in prayer. We're leaving around the middle of November for India and Sri Lanka, and we'll be traveling, going from church to church and group of churches. The whole time we're there, be a solid month or maybe a little bit more than that. But we'll be meeting with hundreds, if not thousands, of preachers. One of my doctors from here in the States is going along with me. The brother I've been using for years as a neurologist has quit his practice. He wants to become a missionary, and he asked if he could go along and pick up some on-the-job training while we're over there. So he'll be with us the whole time. So please keep us in prayer.
For your next family vacation or church missions project, join us for a 1-week visionary trip to Honduras. You'll visit rural churches and homes of poor, destitute families and help serve children at our feeding centers. You'll even have a chance to travel to villages so remote no vehicle can reach them. It's a genuine third world missions experience minus the discomfort, with safe and comfortable accommodations for individual families or church groups, letting you and your young person catch a glimpse of the world of missions outside the U.S. To plan your own custom-made missionary adventure, visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
Welcome to the question and answer session with our founder, Jon Nelms. If you have any inquiries about missions or our ministries, please feel free to visit our website and click the radio symbol that says Heard Our Podcast. Here you can get in touch with us and write your questions in the comment box. We hope to hear from you soon.
What is your favorite country and why?
It depends on where I'm at the moment. Typically, wherever I'm at is my favorite country. But all being said, I have to say my favorite country is Honduras. Why? I can only think that it's because God put the love for the place in my heart. I love being there. And obviously, I spend 3 months a year there doing ministry. But and I'll never retire. But if I were to retire, I'd probably want to move to Honduras. However, I only love it because the people, the culture, the climate, the topography, the food, everything else about it. But when it comes to ministry, my favorite country so far would be India, because it is just an orchard that is ripe with fruit to be picked for the gospel. I love going there. It's a harder trip. I've grown to like the food, although for the first few years I didn't. I don't like the heat. I don't like a lot of things about India, but I love India. And so I look forward to any opportunity we have to go there.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter you would like to have addressed on this show, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
The Great Commission is both a noun and a verb. While you may argue that this may not be technically correct, I think you'll follow where I'm going with it. What do these terms have in common? Boston Marathon, Louisiana Purchase, World War II. They are all recognized as being nouns with a preceding adjective, but I say that they are also verbs, action words preceded by an adverb answering how, when, where, why, or what. The words marathon, purchase, and war can be both noun and verb, depending on their use and context. So can the word commission. As a noun with an adjective, it's not just any commission, it's the Great Commission. But would it surprise you to learn that missionaries see it as a verb, the action of fulfilling a commission or task given to us by our Lord? To what extent does it call us to action? It's His great call to action. If He told us to go into all the world and empty trash in every nation, our emphasis would not be on the trash, but on emptying it. It's like the word church, which means a called out assembly. Our emphasis is on the noun assembly, and so we include the word in our facilities and corporations. But if our emphasis is on the fact that we are called out, then church is a verb. You decide. Are we called to assemble, or do we assemble because we're called, or both? And just to confuse things more, the word pastor is also both a noun and a verb. A man is a pastor because he pastors the congregation. In fact, some churches split because people don't like the way the pastor pastors. Perhaps if we saw our congregations less as a noun and more as a verb, then church would not just be a place you go, but a thing you do. A different view of missions would be helpful too. Understanding that it is not a project to be highlighted once a year, but the very purpose for our being called out. I'm Jon Nelms. To learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Great Omission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.